Um, Thank you. So welcome. Today is the last day of the IDRC Summer Recruitment Institute session and the series of presentations. I hope you have enjoyed many and that you enjoyed this one as well. This is the IDNR interview techniques presented by and my name is Sandra Gibson. I am one of the IDNR specialists from the state of Oregon. I currently work in the Oregon Migrant Education Service Center. So I am part of a team, and my co-presenter is my colleague, and she'll take a moment now to introduce herself as well.
Hi, welcome. My name is Michelle Sandoval. I am the bilingual program trainer, also at the Oregon Migrant Education Service Center in beautiful, rainy, crazy weather, Oregon. And we're excited to be here with you guys today. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Michelle. So in this training, we will cover the fundamentals of identification and recruitment. We'll refer to it as IDNR for short in the migrant education program. Please feel free to use the chat, provide us with input, feedback, comments, questions as they come up for you. We'll both monitor the chat. We also have support here in the Zoom and the webinar that will also help us with that. And then we will have an opportunity for a question and answer portion at the end. So let's get started. And I am managing 3 screens, so there will be a little bit of just handling all of that. Okay, so here we go. Our objective. So why was the migrant education program established? We want to review that. And what is the goal, the mission of the MEP? What does every recruiter need to know? What are some recruitment tools that can help you in your profession, in your role as recruiter? Interview techniques, and putting it all together. Here's a brief history of the MEP. The Migrant Education Program was established by the U.S. Department of Education in 1966. So that's over 65 years. The program is part of the Title I, Part C of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, of 1965, and most recently reauthorized by the Every Student Succeeds Act, so the ESSA of 2015. Which in part aims to prepare all students, regardless of race, income, disability, ethnicity, or proficiency in English, for educational success. That's just a little brief history there. And the goal of the MEP. It is important to understand the why of our purpose for the work that we do in migrant education. What is the goal of the migrant education program? Its primary goal is to ensure that all eligible migratory children meet challenging academic standards and graduate with a high school diploma or complete a high school equivalency diploma that prepares them for responsible citizenship, further learning, and productive employment. So as we look at the Every Student Succeeds Act, we see that the funding that supports this program, our migrant program, high quality education programs. That is what we want for the migratory students. And we want to ensure that migratory students who move among the states are not penalized in any manner by the disparities among states in curriculum, graduation requirements, or state academic content and student academic achievement standards. A key purpose of the ESSA is to provide all children with the opportunity to obtain a high quality education that will enable them to meet the same challenging academic standards in their state that all children are expected to meet. The purpose of the MEP is to ensure that migratory children fully benefit from the same free public education provided to non-migratory children. When looking at identification and recruitment, this is at the heart of every migrant education program, the area of IDNR. You may picture IDNR like a doorway into the migrant education program and our services. So before any child can receive MEP services, a recruiter has to first find them or locate them, recruit them, and then identify them, sign them up. So it is the foundation of the MEP, the IDNR. Finding and enrolling eligible migratory children quickly and efficiently is the foundation of a strong migrant education program. Migratory families often experience difficulties in receiving continuous high-quality educational services due to their high mobility lifestyle. Before migratory children can be served, they must be found and enrolled into the MEP without delay. MEP students and families. The migrant education program serves students and their families. Without migrant students, we don't have a migrant program. That is important to recognize. And I'm quoting a parent who once told me that, without our children, you wouldn't have a migrant program. And that is so true. So the dedication and service that recruiters bring to work each day on behalf of migratory children and their families is more crucial than ever. We are encouraged to use every available resource and innovative strategies to identify and serve the children of our hardworking migratory families, the farm workers and fishers that do this hard work. But what are some common barriers that our migrant population are faced with? They repeatedly relocate for work due to economic necessity. They are often isolated from services. They can be paid low wages for their labor. And they often reside in substandard living conditions. They can feel isolated from the larger community because they come from a different culture. They frequently face a language barrier. Sometimes Spanish is not their first language. It could be a dialect. And so they're already having to learn Spanish, and now they're faced with the English language. And many can live in fear due to documentation and legal status issues. And what are other things that some of the families in your state can face? These are things to reflect on. As we visit our families and we come together with them, we meet them, we must take the time to listen to their story. We want to assess the needs so that we can connect families that are new to our area to the appropriate resources to support their individual needs. In order to do so, we have to address the holistic entire situation there. So, take a look at if housing is an issue for them, income, academics. We know that the children that are traveling and having the migratory lifestyle face gaps in their academics. So how can we support there? What about social? Social emotional seems to be on the rise, the need for support in that area. I am one of the re-interviewers of the state of Oregon. And when I connect with families, that is one thing that came up this year, especially with COVID, that they're just feeling disconnected. The children are not feeling part of the peer group. And there may be other needs. So it's very important that we take the time to listen to their story. We want to assess the needs and connect them to those resources. Remember that even though the families are faced with many of these challenges, we also have to remember that they are resilient. They're hardworking and they don't lose hope. They truly value the education of their children. And many have shared that they want a better opportunity for their own children. And we hear that every time we go out to meet with them. We all have stories to share about that. And we just learn how hardworking they are in their journey. And some of us share the same roots, share a similar story. We can connect with the families we serve because we too have lived these similar conditions. So migrant families and students may immediately feel connections with you as someone that they can trust, someone that they can relate to. Michelle.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. So we're going to be talking about the roles of the recruiter. And before I continue, I want to stop and thank all of you for your hard work that you do for our MEP program. As previously explained by Sandra, at the heart of every MEP program, we have our recruiters. Our recruiters are our strong foundation and our initial supporters that help identify our migrant families. So what is the role of the recruiter when you're fulfilling your job duties as migrant program recruiters? Can we go on to the next slide, please? Well, we want to know what are the code of ethics. So recruiters, we also have an ethics that we want to be able to follow. So we want to know the eligibility rules. That's very important. We want to be objective. We want to be honest. And if needed, we need to report fraud. Fraud or intentional falsification is not something that we should be taken lightly. Remember that the recruiter commits to this code of ethic every time he or she signs a COE, which includes the following statement. I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge, the information is true, reliable, and valid, and I understand that any false statements provided herein that I have made is subject to fine or imprisonment pursuant to 18 USC 1001. Just that statement alone has a very impactful statement that we should really stop and consider because as we previously saw, we need to be honest, and that is why it's very important that we know what are the eligibility rules, because that is our signature. And when we read that statement and there's that subject to fine, that means that we are signing. So we are we're taking responsibility and ownership. Next slide, please. Have you ever had an interview with a family who didn't qualify and it made you feel hopeless because they didn't qualify? And so this is why it's important that we are objective. Again, we may encounter families who are living far below the poverty level and who have great needs. So this is going to be hard on us if they don't qualify. The recruiter must not confuse empathy for the family with the duties and responsibilities of the job. The recruiter must not be influenced by personal feelings or opinions, but must responsibly represent facts when gathering information from the family or the worker. The recruiter must remain objective and equitable when making the MEP eligibility determinations. You heard me ask earlier, how did you feel? Remember, just because they don't qualify, it doesn't mean that there are not other programs or resources that you can use or offer to help them. Maybe you can connect them with another agency. However, we cannot let our personal feelings blind us on our ethics. Let's make this a little bit more interactive, and why don't we use the chat box and let us know if you've ever encountered this situation when someone did not qualify. How did you feel? Go ahead and add this in your chat. Maybe you've all qualified all of the families? Or you've never encountered this? Sad. Thank you, Paulina. It's hard when you know they could use the help and they're disappointed. So in this cases, because this is why we say we can't let our personal feelings, we can't confuse empathy for the family. We have to stick by this ethics, hopeless, frustrated. And yes, I have just explained that they may qualify for another time. So I just wanted us as a group to see that we all have experienced those feelings. But as explained, they could qualify for another time, or we can offer other resources. But that is why it's very important that we understand what are the eligibility rules. Why? Well, we want to be accurate. Next slide, please. So accurate eligibility determinations. Why are accurate eligibility determinations important? What implications can come from recruiting families that do not qualify? Every state is required to implement a quality control policy and procedures that includes an examination by qualified individuals at the SEA, your state educational agency, or local operating agency level of each ECOE to verify that the written documentation is sufficient and that based on the recorded data, the child is eligible for MEP services. Eligibility determination and COEs do not automatically transfer from state to state. Each state must have confidence in the accuracy of its eligibility determinations. If you're unsure or have any questions about an eligibility determination, ask your team for support. And this is very important because we sometimes think because they were eligible in another state that they're going to automatically transfer and be eligible here. Well, what does your guidance tell you? If you have a moment, I recommend that you read your NRG section H13 where it asks, and I will read it. May a recruiter accept automatically another state's COE as evidence of a child's eligibility for the MEP program? The answer by the guidance is no. Each state is responsible for making its own eligibility determination for the children it enrolls in the MEP. We encourage recruiters and states to utilize M6 as one source of information in making eligibility determination. Example, to view the child's records or communicate with colleagues in other states, thereby facilitating a child's participation in the MEP. So please, as recruiters, make your own interview. And yes, I love to always remind people to consult M6 because it is a valuable tool and we are learning about techniques that we can use. M6 will be helpful. Next slide. Identification and training for recruiters. Every recruiter must complete their state's IDNR training before they are certified as a recruiter. Taking and passing an evaluation is part of the certification process. Know and understand the IDNR requirements and work with experienced recruiters before you go out in the field. So here's like an example. You want to know your federal regulations. What are those key factors for a child's eligibility, including work eligibility? What is the qualifying move? Is this seasonal and temporary work? What is the qualifying work? What are the specific rules and guidance? When interviewing families, you want to be able to feel comfortable. And then right now, due to the pandemic, there's even COVID-19 steps that we want to follow because we want to keep our families health safe, but we also want you recruiters to stay safe. And then for those states that have gone paperless and are using an electronic form, get familiar with your mobile or electronic COE so that you can feel confident and comfortable using that. Next slide. We also want to remind you to review the non-regulatory guidance, Federal Register, and the COE National Instruction Manuals. These should kind of become your bedside reading material. And it's okay to have a book full of notes and all kind of highlighted and water dripped because that indicates if it's all wrinkly like mine, that you are using it. Next slide.
Okay, so here we have a visual that was created by the state of California. So shout out to California that shares some of their resources with our state. So in Oregon, we have found great value in this tool. And we encourage you to print it and reference it in your IDNR efforts. Our state is using it. So this tool was designed to distinguish between the eligibility factors of the migratory child versus the eligibility factors of the migratory worker. So it is important to understand that the migratory agricultural worker or migratory fisher and the migratory child share some eligibility factors, and some factors are unique to each. So here you have a visual, and the purple lines here pertain to eligibility factors with the child. So they pertain to the migratory child. The orange lines pertain to both. And when you see green lines, they only pertain to the worker. And in the case where the worker and the child are one and the same, then all the factors, right, will pertain to them. So here we see the migratory child has to be under the age of 22 years old, enrolled eligible for free public education, and moved, make the qualifying move as well, right? And so I won't read everything, but here you will have this, as this PowerPoint PDF will be shared with you. So you will have this tool available for reference. Okay, and let's get into the terms. Migratory child is a child or youth who made a qualifying move in the preceding 36 months as a migratory agricultural worker or migratory fisher with to join, precede a parent or guardian or spouse who is a migratory worker. So there are many terms and definitions and acronyms that are used in the migrant education program, right? One way, one method that helped me to learn the terms and definition was to use index cards. And on one side, I would write the migratory child like that as an example. And then on the back side of that card, I would write the definition. So I created a lot of different cards like this, and whenever I had an opportunity, then I could review them. So I carried my stack of cards wherever I needed them and just use them in this way to get familiar with the terms. If you're a newer recruiter, this might be something that works for you. But in the chat, you can write, those of you that have more experience, many years, you can write other ideas of how you, memorize some of these terms and made them part of your everyday vocabulary. So let's see what the next term is. Age. The migratory child must be born prior to the move and not be older than 21. And then the free public education component. So that means that the child is entitled to a free public education through grade 12 under state law, or is not yet at grade level at which the LEA provides a free public education. The migratory child cannot have a high school diploma or high school equivalency or GED. So there in Oregon, we do not accept a high school diploma that was earned in another country. So if a 18-year-old comes to the United States or to Oregon, and they had their diploma from Mexico or Guatemala, then we consider that he is eligible for a free public education and can earn a GED or a high school diploma in Oregon. Okay, and Michelle, let me know if any comments and things that I need to know from the chat.
I will.
Okay, so let's get into migratory worker. So we're gonna review a few of the terms, and for some of you will be review, but we'll also do some knowledge checks, so be ready for those. So migratory agricultural worker or fisher is a person who in the preceding 36 months made a qualifying move and soon after engaged in a new temporary or seasonal employment or personal subsistence in agriculture or fishing. And you have an engaged worker and a not engaged worker. The difference is that the engaged worker has their hands on the product, has started performing the qualifying work. And the not engaged worker is a person who in the preceding 36 months made a qualifying move, but did not actually engage in the qualifying work. And that could be due to circumstances that were beyond that person's control. They were guaranteed and made the move thinking that they were going to obtain the work, but something happened that they were told, we have enough workers, you're not needed. So in this case, then you would write the actively sought checkbox on the COE, and that they actively sought the work soon after, and that they have a recent history of moves that resulted in qualifying work. And for that, we need at least two within the last 36 months. So you're always looking at that timeline of the last 36 months or the last 3 years. And here we're going to move right into the knowledge check with Michelle.
Thank you. So let's do, to make sure we're all awake, a knowledge check. And why don't we go ahead and use the chat box for the answers? So the migratory child must, and select all that apply. A, be under the age of 22, birth through 21 years. B, need our services. C, be eligible for free public education. D, make a qualifying move as a migratory worker or with to join precede a migratory worker. So please select all of those that apply. And we have, someone says all of them. Someone says A and B. We have someone that says all. A and D, all of above, A and C, all. So the majority is saying that all of them, others A and B and D, A, C, D. So what is the answer, Sandra?
Okay, they got A and B. Oh, pardon me, it's C and D. So A, C, and D. So this is in alignment with the definition of migratory child. We understand that children will be in need of services, but that is not part of the definition. So that's why A, C, and D are the correct answers. All right, let's move on to qualifying move. Qualifying move, a move made, 1, due to economic necessity, 2, from one residence to another, and 3, from one school district to another. So that is the definition for that. Now, economic necessity. This one seems to be challenging for a lot of us because it is difficult to really capture and understand how economic necessity works. And the word economic necessity will not necessarily come up in your conversation with families, but your questions can gather that information. So here the guidance says that the child and the worker moved because they could not afford to stay, which is something that they will share. Families will, once you ask them, ¿por qué se movieron? Why did you move? We could not afford to stay might be one of the answers in the current location, and or to obtain work in agriculture or fishing activity in their new location. So an opportunity for work, an opportunity to earn money. And move with. When referring to the term move with, it's when the child and the worker move together. And that's going to be the most common, at least in Oregon. We do see that families usually move together. The worker and the child move with together. To join or proceed, this is when the child and the worker move at different times. The worker and child must come together within 12 months. So they do have that 12-month window to join or come before, which means proceed. And more, we have soon after. When in the migrant education program, the term soon after means within 60 days of the qualifying move. So when it talks about the worker engaged in work soon after the move, so that is 60 days of the qualifying move. Recent history of moves. What does it refer to? Well, it must be within the 36-month timeline of the recruiter's interview and the history of 2 moves that resulted in qualifying work. So you're going to document that on the COE, that when you check that, not engaged worker that actively sought, then you're going to have that information. This element of recent history of moves will need to be documented. Qualifying arrival date, or QAD or quad. The date the migratory child and the migratory agricultural worker complete the qualifying move. That's when the timeline begins. Now you're going to be looking from the quad 3 years of services, 3 years into the future, they are eligible. Okay, I think you're ready for a knowledge check again, Michelle.
Yes, so knowledge check number 2. Which of the following criteria are required for a qualifying move? And again, select all that apply by included in the chat box. So A, from one residence to another. B, from one school district to another with limited exceptions. C, change in school enrollment. D, due to economic necessity. E, followed by engagement in new qualifying work. Okay.
We're getting lots of answers. We're getting A, B, and D is the most common. A, B, and D.
Oh, E seems to be a runner-up as well.
Okay, do we want to see what the answer is?
Let's give it
a few.
Yeah, a lot of people are commenting, and
oh yeah.
So thank you. We appreciate the collaboration. Okay, so what is the answer, Sandra?
We have A, from one residence to another, B, from one school district to another, and D, due to economic necessity. Remember that there are sometimes children that do not necessarily have to enroll in school. You have those out-of-school youth, but looking at these, we are looking at the definition. The definition of qualifying move has those 3 elements that we stated. So A, B, and D. Good job, everyone. All right, let's talk about qualifying work next. So we have agricultural work, and that is the production or initial processing of the raw agricultural products. This can involve crops, poultry, livestock, dairy work, as well as the cultivation or harvesting of trees. Work is performed for wages or personal subsistence. Fishing work, the catching or initial processing of fish or shellfish, as well as the raising and harvesting of fish, shellfish at fish farms. And this is performed also for wages or personal subsistence. Seasonal work occurs only during a certain period of the year that is bound by the cycles of nature. It is not continuous throughout the year. When we interview families, we have a recruiter's handbook that we reference because we have we have collected this information of when crops that are common to Oregon and when during the season they occur. So as we check our work, we always reference that so that we know that we are listing an activity that actually takes place during that period of the year. And we do understand that because of the changes in climate, some of the crops may be, shifting a little bit, and we take that into account. But we do a lot of research. If a family comes to our state from California, then we need to understand the seasons and the cycles of nature that occur for the crops that are grown in those other states. Temporary work. The worker is employed for less than 12 months. And so for that, we will need a statement on the COE when you mark the temporary work box. All right, and we have another knowledge check, Michelle.
Yes, we want to make sure you guys are awake. Knowledge check number 3. Assuming the work activity is the worker's only task, which of the following is not considered agricultural work for the purpose of the MEP? A, planting tulips for a commercial nursery. B, transporting corn to a bourbon distillery. C, spreading compost on fields before seeds are planted. D, deboning raw chicken in a poultry processing facility. E, cleaning cattle pens on a farm. So let's look at that check box. Which one is not considered agricultural work?
The chat box has B, mostly B's. Should I press it?
We've got 4 messages. Okay, let's see it now. What is the
Okay.
answer?
Transporting corn to a bourbon distillery. Do you want to explain that one, Michelle?
I wasn't prepared to do it, thank you, Sandra, but it's okay.
So usually I can take it.
Okay.
Usually when you are hired to transport, you may be part of a trucking company, and so that is when now you are transporting the corn, but now it's going to be used for a different purpose. So you don't necessarily, well, you're not considered an agricultural worker at that point. So the other ones, planting tulips, you're working with the product, spreading compost, all of that has to do with preparing, the fields, the product, deboning raw chicken, cleaning cattle pens on a farm. That's temporary agricultural work. So all the other ones do apply. Michelle.
So let's talk about preparing for the recruitment. Before you can fill out a certificate of eligibility, known as the COE, to sign up a student to the migrant program, you must understand these terms as they are all part of the COE form. What else can you do to prepare for the recruitment? We can go to the next slide. Review your recruitment handbook. Understand ESSA, or many of us call it ESSA, Migratory Child Eligibility Factors. Understand migratory agricultural worker, fisher, and migratory child eligibility factors. In Oregon, and you want to understand definitions of qualifying move and qualifying work. And you want to work with and observe an experienced recruiter. This is very important because this is where you start getting your support system. In Oregon, every new recruiter is required to complete a 6-hour training. They need to take and pass an exam to demonstrate understanding of the eligibility factors, practice filling out COEs, and complete in our case in Oregon, a mobile COE training. Also included is to observe a certified recruiter and conduct 2 interviews. Then they are observed by the experienced recruiter or a mentor, and they're going to observe as the recruiter conducts 3 interviews and completes the COE. The mentor recruiter can provide valuable feedback and guidance through this process. This is to ensure that our recruiters are fully equipped before they go out into the field on their own. Technical assistance and guidance is provided to them at the local and state level to ensure their success. So recruiters, don't worry, we're not just going to throw you out at the field. You will be working and you will have a mentor and really create that support system amongst each other. So now that you're ready to put together your recruitment toolkit, let's take the time to gather your materials ahead of time, as this is essential for your success and will increase your confidence out in the field. What can you add in this list? Let's look at what we have. Here are some items that work well for some of our recruiters. This list does not include everything that you will need, but can serve as a guide as you prepare for recruitment. We have a sample interview checklist, working pens and notepads, MEP business cards, MEP brochures, List of local social services agencies. You want to wear your MEP badge or name tag so that you can easily be identified. Electronics that you will need, such as a cell phone, laptop, and other device. And then while you are out, notes. That way, if you don't find the family, you can leave a message there. And then other. Do you have other items that you will like to bring with you and make it part of your toolkit? Again, let's use the chat box. We want to hear from you because this is how we learn. We have a lot of experienced recruiters here, but we also have a lot of new recruiters. And this is a good time for us to support each other. What would you recommend for a toolkit? We can add that our information in the chat box if there's something you would recommend. Is there something that's your go-to or you can't recruit without? Umbrellas and flashlight. Sample interview checklist is my #1. Yes. Tape or thumbtacks. Water. Especially when we're out in the summer and in those areas where it gets extremely hot. Yes, you want to stay hydrated. And because you guys, the recruiters are out in the fields at times and you guys have a long day, it could get very dark. So that flashlight can come in very handy. Okay, yes, information from your agencies. Okay, so resources. I like this. Always inform your team where you're at all times. This can be very important. Remember, our priority is your safety, recruiters. And sunscreen lotions. Boots, charging cords. I'm thinking you guys are saying boots because lots of times you are in the fields and if you take your nice shoes, they will get muddy. So good ideas. Emergency kit, very important. Always go out in teams, 2 for safety, yes. Wear comfortable, appropriate clothing, yes. So lots of good stuff. Yes, dress attire is a big factor. We don't want to intimidate our families. Well, we want to look professional, but we also don't want to not be able to, we don't want to intimidate our families. We don't want to vernos presumidos. So for better words. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for sharing this. We can all learn from each other, and this is a great list for all of us. Oh, here's a good question. If you go out in teams, what is the role typically of the person who accompanies the recruiter? Okay, and I could see because if you go in a 3-4 bunch group, you know, the family might feel intimidated. That's a good question. Oh, Sandra, were you going to say something?
Yes, I have gone with a team of recruiters and then there's a lot of families that we know have arrived to this location. So we try to get together with a family and we know we're there to support each other and we're at close proximity, but still in a private location so that we can gather that information. So sometimes teaming together or being there just as the support person carrying some of the tools, being ready just to provide an answer. It does help to go into, especially if you're going into camps, and it's good to have. But you can prepare while you're in your car to see who's going to take the lead in speaking, but you're there to support each other, and you're a team of 2 professionals coming to provide services, educational services to the children.
So communication is big, so that way there is a plan, but just remember things sometimes change. The person might start coughing and se fue por el lado equivocado, your drinking water went down the wrong pipe and you can't even talk no more, but you're fine. So your team member can jump in, but you could always have something ahead of time. But I also want to, everyone's also commenting that they bring stuff to donate, and that is very good resource for information right there. Coloring books, stuff to make the kids happy. but I want to highlight, someone said like a speakerphone, because maybe they're going to a camp and they're going to talk to several families at the same time, probably to just kind of explain why they're there. So that's another great idea. You know, I'm loving all of this, and we value all your input because we all benefit from this.
One more thing, Michelle, would be if you know that you're meeting with families from a different dialect, maybe bringing an interpreter with you might be perfect to make those connections and honor their language and their culture, if that is available to you in your state.
Thank you. And I think we have a question comment from someone as far as who that other person, because she understands that they're recommending to go in teams. And so she says, for example, would you invite a teacher to be the second person? I just know who I would invite to accompany me out in the, I don't know who I would invite to accompany me out in the field. Our team is very small.
Yeah, there's some, so you're welcome to invite even your coordinator. So I know that some of our recruiters have brought their coordinators out, meet the families and just present the person, but it's just there for protection, support, and to offer any additional information. But of course, you want to consider and not intimidate, like Michelle said, you don't want to bring too many. So just talk among your team and come up with good solutions that can work for you. All right, so let's see here. We're going to get into another portion here. That's great discussion we've had, but MEP recruitment mindset. You know, the process of recruiting a migrant child and interviewing the families requires careful training, planning. As you can see, so many great ideas. There's cultural sensitivity that has to be taken into account. Knowledge of the MEP, you know, those things that we covered. They're not the entire thing that you need to know, but we wanted to give you some of the basics. And it's also important, essential even, to prepare one's heart, because you chose this profession because you have a servant's heart. And that is the reason why you do the work that you do every day. Through COVID circumstances, through challenges, through the barriers, you show up daily to do the challenging work of recruitment because you understand the needs of the students and families that we serve. So you understand the impact our work has on each and every single student and family we come in contact with. I have been out with experienced recruiters that as we're driving to meet the families, you know, they share stories and they have tears in their eyes because they love the work that they do. Their heart is moved for the work and for the families that they serve. That I've seen that with all the recruiters. So there's nobody here that's working in this profession because, you know, it's something that makes a lot of money or anything like that. We are working hard because we know the difference it makes in the people's lives that we serve. So that's important. I wanted to recognize the work that you do. So the MEP recruitment mindset requires a great deal of knowledge, like we said, skill, sensitivity. The recruiter is soliciting personal information, and we have to do that without offending. You know, we don't want to be abrasive at all. We want to make connections and be able to earn the trust. So always assure the parent or guardian or student that their information is protected. And really from the get-go, start being aware. Are you in a public place? Are you at a store and there are others around when you're gathering information? That might embarrass the family. So be sure to introduce yourself, yes, and you can do that in public, but maybe make an appointment to speak with them if you see that the location is not private. So the recruiter has to balance between having a relaxed conversation, gathering sensitive information needed to determine the child eligibility factors are met. So it takes some, you know, you have skills, you have tools, and you have mastered this art. For some of you, this becomes natural. And that's where we want to get. All right. IDNR interview components. Let's get into discussing the components of the migrant program interview. Let's dive right into this topic. So these are the components of the interview. First, you lay the groundwork for the interview, and we'll go over each of these and how that looks in the actual interview. Then you transition to the interview. You gather information on child eligibility, and then you transition to the confirmation process. You confirm responses, that's part of the quality control, right? And then you close the interview. So these are the steps and all the components that have to be included in your interview. And you do them naturally. You don't inform the parent of any of these steps. It just transitions naturally in your conversations. So the first step, introduce yourself, right? You start the interview, you knock on the door or you're on the phone, you meet the parent out in the community at a recruitment event. What do you do first, right? We first, hola, ¿cómo está? Oh, soy Sandra. Hello, my name is Sandra. And having that warm smile right away, that's gonna go a long way to help you establish trust. So starting the interview, what do you do first? It might be different for each of you, but somehow you have to first, soy Sandra, and I work for the Migrant Education Program in the school district. So you want to explain your affiliation to the school district. And we've had discussions about the name Migrant, right? Some of our experienced recruiters have said they avoid using that word because it's so much associated with immigration, right? It kind of sounds the same. So whatever works for you, you might be part of a school district, let's say Amity School District. So you can say, soy Sandra del Distrito Escolar de Amity. I'm Sandra from the Amity School District. So just as long as they know that you're associated with the education program in your district. So explain why you are making the home visit or the phone call. Remember that families need to be comfortable with your presence. Examples of opening comments that have worked for some. I understand you are new to our area. I was in a community event with one of our recruiters, and she was approaching all the families because it's a small town, so she knew exactly who was new in that crowd there. So she would say, are you new to the area? And she would then start up a conversation with them. The school informed me that your children have recently registered. And that's working with the school staff, right? So you have to be able to connect with the school staff because they do. They let us know when the new families have registered. Thank you for meeting with me to discuss the migrant education program services. So communicating with a warm smile can help you establish trust. And that's, again, for emphasis. So these are the starting the interview, how you can get that going. And here's a sample introduction script. Hola, soy Sandra. Trabajo para el programa de educación migrante. El propósito de nuestro programa es apoyar a los estudiantes con su educación. Me gustaría platicar brevemente con usted para determinar si sus hijos son elegibles para nuestro programa. La información que usted comparta conmigo es privada y se usará solo para fines educacionales. ¿Es un buen momento para platicar? And of course, this is just a sample and you do not necessarily have to do it exactly like this. It's best to do it how you feel comfortable so that you make a connection. Genuine, authentic self-expression is best. And Michelle, if there's a comment, I think there's a comment, if you can check that one out in the chat.
Yes, I'm responding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so laying the groundwork, how does that actually look in practical terms? Let's take a look. El programa de educación migrante ayuda a las familias que han trabajado en agricultura o pesca. So this is as you're laying the groundwork for for going towards the interview. And we're going to put it all together for you in a moment. Me gustaría hacerle algunas preguntas acerca de su familia para determinar si este programa puede serle de ayuda. Por ejemplo, le voy a preguntar las edades de sus hijos, el trabajo que han realizado y dónde han vivido e ido a la escuela. Discúlpeme si algunas de las preguntas que le hagan parecen muy personales. No tengo intención de ofenderle, pero necesito esta información para ver si este programa puede serle de ayuda. These are just suggestions, and we hope that they can work for you. Okay, so here is also, we borrowed this from California. As you can see below, it says West End. This is an interview screening framework that has worked for us in Oregon, and we put it as part of our training material in Oregon. So here, this framework provides a simple and quick screening tool to help you determine if a family may qualify for the migrant education program. So by following the simple pattern of migratory worker first step, then migratory child, and then subsequent move, then you can acquire key information that you will need to determine if it will be necessary for you to proceed to documenting the family's information on the certificate of eligibility. You do not want to start filling out the COE and then later realize that you don't actually have an eligibility. So it's important to ask these questions before you get that started, the COE. So here is the 1, 2, 3 steps. So it tells you determine the most recent qualifying move first that established the migratory agricultural worker or fisher. So that's going to be your first step. Then the second step is you determine whether the child or children made the same qualifying move that you just discussed, or that they moved later to join the established migratory worker. And then you move on to always asking about any additional moves. So this is the subsequent move. Determine whether the children made a subsequent qualifying move with or to join the established migratory worker. So that is 1, 2, 3, and we're going to see it now with the questions. Now you have the questions there. These are the questions that may apply as you're asking the person to the person you're talking to, or to their spouse, or to another member in their family. And so you can begin, in the last 3 years, have you moved or and worked in agriculture or fishing? And you allow them to think about that, because you're asking them to think back 3 years. So giving opportunity, time for process is important. When was the most recent time you moved for the purposes of working in agriculture or fishing? What kind of work did you do? And then after you gather the answers to that question, you move on to the migratory child section. 2, did the children make the same move we just discussed? And you can repeat the information that they gave you in that first question. And then you ask, did you and the children make any additional moves after the one we just discussed? Why did you move again? So these can guide your questions as you're determining and screening the family to determine if you should move into gathering the additional information for your certificate of eligibility. Here we have it in Spanish as well. ¿Se ha mudado usted en los últimos 3 años y hecho trabajo de campo o pesca? ¿Cuándo fue la última vez? ¿Qué tipo de trabajo hizo? ¿Los niños hicieron esa misma mudanza? And then se ha vuelto a mudar usted y los niños después. So you will have a copy of these. Michelle. We can't hear you, Michelle. I think you're on mute.
Thank you. So let's talk about the quality control check. Before you leave the interview, double check the accuracy of your COE. The recruiter's role includes conducting comprehensive eligibility interviews, filling out the COE with accuracy, and making correct eligibility determinations. Before you leave, review the COE with the parent or other interviewee at the time of the interview to make sure that the information recorded on the COE is correct. You fill it out, show the parents, do I have the name spelled correctly? Is the date of birth accurate? You want to check the COE for completeness. All blanks are filled, dates appear correct, required comments are complete, and names are spelled correctly. Does the qualifying work activity occur during the month when the family moved? So for example, if the family told you that they moved in January to pick strawberries, that should probably be something like a flag. You know, do we pick strawberries in January? Most of the states are going to say no, because that's winter. You also want to make sure you have documented everything to support the eligibility determination that it is valid. And then you want to make any corrections as needed before submitting your COE. Remember, everyone who works in IDNR, including the recruiter, is responsible for knowing the child eligibility requirements and ensuring quality control. So closing the interview. How do you close your interview after you have completed the certificate of eligibility? If you're unsure after you've done the interview, avoid making a final eligibility determination during the interview. Tell the parent, guardian, or student that you will inform them if they are eligible for the MEP. You can say the following: Le informaré lo antes posible si sus hijos son elegibles para el programa de educación migrante. ¿Tiene alguna pregunta para mí? Aquí está mi tarjeta y el número donde usted puede comunicarse conmigo si tiene alguna pregunta. Muchas gracias por tomarse el tiempo para responder a mis preguntas. So let's not just take the information, is this correct, get up and leave. Let's close it in a friendly, leave the door open, because after all, we are becoming their support system, and ask them, do you have any questions for me? Here is my contact information. So we have been talking about the foundation, what is our toolkits, how to introduce ourselves, and how to close the interview. But now let's watch a video that puts all of these skills together. And I will be sharing my screen now to show you a video. Okay, 1 second here. We practiced this several times so it could come out good, and now it's hiding. I'm going to stop share. Okay.
And we're seeing other screens.
Yeah, I'm trying to get that.
Yeah, you might want to close those. And then,
the problem is that it keeps going to the wrong screen
okay, let me
when I
see.
want to share it. So
Okay,
that's,
that looks good. And
You
the
found
record.
it?
no, that is not even it. How did that pop up? 1 second here.
Okay.
Sorry for this technical difficulty.
Thank you. Okay, so let me see if I can share it, Michelle. I think
Okay,
I
thank you.
might be able, this will stop your sharing. And let me see if I can get it going, okay? So what do you see on your screen right now? The video?
Yes.
Okay, so just hopefully the sound is also gonna be shared. But let me know if it's not and I will figure it out. So here we go.
So thank you for coming to my office to meet with me about the program that I mentioned to you on the phone. And it is the Migrant Education Program. I have a brochure for you that you can read later, and also my business card. So the purpose of our meeting is so that we can determine if your children might qualify and benefit from these services and program. So I'll be asking you a few questions. It will be about your move here and the history of work. So we can get started. So my first question for you is, thinking about the last 3 years, have you or someone in your household moved for the purposes of obtaining work in agriculture or fishing?
Yes, for agriculture, actually, we made the move, and it's agriculture what my husband's doing.
Okay, all right. So I will be taking some notes. And so agriculture. Can you tell me about that move and the date of that move?
Yeah, this move, it was when just the one we just did right now, from Fresno to Amity, and that was in April recently, middle of April.
Okay.
I think it's April 15th, I'm pretty sure.
April 15, 2022.
Yes.
And you mentioned from Fresno, California to Amity, Oregon. So, and what was the purpose of the leaving Fresno to come here?
We had to leave Fresno because my husband got laid off. He was the one that works, and so he got laid off and couldn't find work. So, but we came here because we heard there was an opportunity to work, and so he was able to get a job here, and so we're here now.
Oh, I'm glad to hear, and we're happy to have you. And okay, so I have April 15, 2022, moved from Fresno, California to Amity, Oregon, due to your husband losing his job. And so was he able to obtain something here in Amity or in the area?
Yeah, he started working actually right away. It was a good thing. And he started working at a nursery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nursery. Perfect. And now let's move to the children. So thinking about the move we just discussed, the move from Fresno, California, for the purpose of obtaining work in agriculture, and you said nursery work on April 15. And I like to repeat that information just to verify that I have obtained the correct information. Did the children also make that move?
Oh, yeah, we moved together.
Okay, so together as a family.
Yes.
Okay, and we always like to ask if there are any additional moves that have been done after that one that we recorded.
No, just April 15, 2022.
Okay, so based on the information you provided, it looks like your children may qualify for our program. And so this is an opportunity, if you have the time, to complete the application process. So for that, I will use my laptop so that we can gather and complete the information. That will also include the names of the children and their dates of birth and information like that. Is this a good time?
Yeah, this is actually a good time because the kids don't get out till 2:30. So.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so let's get started.
Hola, señora Montaño.
Sí.
Pásale, por favor, tome asiento.
Gracias.
Mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Michelle Sandoval.
Mucho gusto, Michelle.
Es Montaño, gracias de que tomó el tiempo para venir aquí para platicar conmigo. Entonces el propósito va a ser para poder hacerle unas preguntas para saber si califican, pero déjenle doy este tratadito aquí, folletito, para que lo lea, que habla más sobre el programa, y mi tarjeta por si después tiene algunas preguntas, entonces puede estar en contacto conmigo. Entonces lo que queremos saber es si sus hijos pudieran calificar para el programa de educación migrante. Entonces quisiera hacerles una pregunta. ¿Está bien con usted?
Claro que sí.
Ok, bueno, vamos a ver primero, pensando en los últimos 3 años, ¿alguna vez le ha tocado a usted o a alguien de su familia mudarse de un lugar a otro para buscar trabajo en la agricultura o en la pesca?
Sí, nos hemos mudado, sí, para el propósito de agricultura. ¿No?
Ok, eso fue agricultura. ¿Y cuándo fue la última vez?
Pues la última vez fue para trabajar en la pizca y fue hace 6 meses, creo diciembre del 2021.
Ok, Voy a tomar aquí unos apuntes porque mi memoria es muy mala y así puedo asegurar eso. Trabajó en la pizca más de 6 meses, diciembre 2021 me mencionó, ¿verdad?
Sí.
¿Sabe el día?
Sí, es a finales, entonces 30 de diciembre del 2021.
30 de diciembre, muy bien. Dijo que era la pizca, ¿qué en específico?
Fue del tomate,
Tomate, ok, fue tomate. Ok. ¿Y de dónde es que en esta mudanza del 30 de diciembre del 2021, de dónde es que se mudaron?
Nos vinimos de Veracruz, México, y nos vinimos a, creo que se llama Palm Beach, la Florida.
Palm Beach. ¿Les gusta el mar?
Sí, sí.
Qué bien, qué bien. Ok, entonces se cambiaron de Veracruz, México a Palm Beach, Florida, el 30 de diciembre del 2021 y dijo que me puede recordar qué tipo de trabajo le tocó hacer a usted o al que uno de sus familiares en Florida.
Sí, fue mi esposo el que trabajó.
Fue esposo.
Sí, mi esposo, y él fue el que trabajó en la pizca de tomate.
Ok. Y pensando en esta mudanza de la que estamos hablando ahorita, que me mencionó la de Veracruz a Florida para piscar tomates, ¿fue una mudanza nomás de su esposo? ¿Fue juntos o fue en familia, tiene con sus hijos?
Sí, tenemos una hija.
¿Es una hija?
Ok. Y todos juntos nos vinimos.
Juntos, sí. Nadie se adelantó o vino después.
No.
Se fueron juntos, una hija. ¿Cuántos años tiene su hija?
Mi hija tiene 15 años y
15 años.
está en el 10º grado.
Y es la única hija que mencionó que tenía.
Sí, solamente.
Entonces, solamente ella. Ok, tengo otra pregunta más. Pensando en esta mudanza de la que estamos ahorita, seguimos platicando, que incluye a su hija. ¿Ha hecho alguna otra mudanza después o...?
Sí, hubo una mudanza después de esa, y esa fue de la Florida a Oregon.
Okay,
Entonces, a Ontario, Oregon. Y la fecha, creo que mediados de febrero, como el 18 de febrero, y eso sería el año 2022.
Esta fue febrero 18, 2022. ¿Cuál fue la razón de esta mudanza?
O porque una vez que se acabó la cosecha de tomate, entonces pudimos viajar para acá y mi esposo ahora trabaja en un restaurante.
Ok, qué bien, qué bien. Entonces, estaba trabajando en la pizca del tomate y luego menciona que se vino aquí a trabajar en un restaurante. ¿Se acabó el trabajo?
Se acabó el trabajo, la cosecha, entonces pues ya no teníamos, ¿verdad?, para los gastos, entonces aquí hubo oportunidad, está más barato que en la Florida. También.
Más barato, me imagino. Y pues gracias por estas respuestas basado a lo que usted me está informando. Sus hijos calificarían para el programa, entonces si está bien con usted, me gustaría seguir esta entrevista tomando ahora la información de sus estudiantes para crear un certificado de elegibilidad. ¿Tiene tiempo para que continuemos?
Sí, ahorita mismo podemos hacerlo.
Ok, muchas gracias. Entonces empecemos. Okay, let's see. So now I need to what do you see on my screen now, Michelle?
We're back at the PowerPoint.
Back at the PowerPoint, perfect. Okay, so yes, the opportunity to view that video. Thank you, Michelle, for participating in that. Let's see what else we have here. I think I need to stop share for a moment just to get my PowerPoint back. Okay, now I will share again. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, so we saw the video and that's an illustration. Of course, every story has their own way and some can be shorter, some are going to be a little bit longer. You saw the first one was a move altogether.
And then in the second one, you had the same concept of move altogether, but with the element of subsequent move. So IDNR is the foundation of the MEP, and reaching migratory children and youth is at the heart of the MEP. So now we're just putting it all together, and the importance of effective recruitment cannot be overemphasized. Without a good recruiter, the neediest migratory children may not be served. So the effective recruiter can become the center of a network that connects the migratory family and youth to the communities, to the school, to the resources that they need. So when the migratory family trusts the recruiter, they are much more likely to tell him or her about the new families that can move into your area. You want that word of mouth referrals. And if they trust the services, they trust you, the recruiter, they have your business card ready for them to then connect with you so that they can tell you about additional moves that they have made, and also to connect you to other migratory families that they come in contact with. So just to wrap it all up, our mission is that every student succeeds. That is what we are here for at the heart of every migrant education program. We all share the same mission, that every student succeeds. Here our information was taken from these resources that are available to all, the MEP National IDNR Manual, and Michelle, you will put that in the chat, the link to that,
Yes.
as well as we have the ODE, Oregon Department of Education Title 1C Migrant Education Program link there. We also have the National Certificate of Eligibility Instruction Manual link, the non-regulatory guidance, and of course, IDRC, full of resources, right? So if you have not yet visited their YouTube channel, we encourage you to do that because it is rich in resources for you and for me. So this is the opportunity now. If you have questions, you can enter questions into the chat, and even after this recording and session is over, we will still be able to respond to some of those. So we'll go back, Michelle and I will go back and read through your questions and make sure that we provide you with answers. Michelle, can you also enter both our emails so that?
Yes.
Perfect. So we thank you so much for the opportunity to spend this time with you. Please reach out to us. Oregon State presenters, Sandra Gibson, bilingual IDNR, Michelle Sandoval, bilingual program trainer. So Michelle specializes in OMSIS, M6, and the electronic COE, mobile COE. And then I do the component of IDNR, but we work closely together. We have a great team in Oregon, and we love to share our resources with you. We also like to collaborate. So if you have resources that you'd like to share with us, we welcome all of that. So please reach out to us if you do have questions. I see a lot of comments coming into the chat. Thank you to everyone for everything that you have contributed to making this a fun and valuable experience. So thank you.
Yes,
From
thank
the
you.
Oregon Migrant Education. I'll stop my share now. And
I want to thank all of those that have been collaborating and jumping in and helping the new recruiters, answering and giving ideas. That has been very helpful. Good comments were given. And as far as, what happens when we want to change the law, I really, like that they said, it's time to advocate for change. We cannot make those decisions. We cannot change the law on our own, but let's advocate so that change can happen through regulation and done properly. Thank you all. Sandra?
Thank you. And just a reminder that from state to state, certain things that we presented are specific to Oregon. So if you have doubts, do check in with your team, your regional coordinator. They will have the things that are specific to your state. But we hope that today's presentation can provide you with some of those fundamentals that have to do with identification and recruitment, interview techniques, and that you take away a good experience from this. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and make sure that you evaluate. I think Jessica sent to all participants a link so that you can fill out an evaluation form as well.
And the link should be there
And
already.
Nora,
so please
Nora
click on
actually,
it.
yeah, Nora just put it also in the chat. Please take a moment to complete that form. We do appreciate your feedback.